What can be better than teeth-shattering knockouts from big guys who, not sparing any power and stamina, rush into the very heat of battle to give us a spectacle? We thought the same. That's why we prepared for you an amazing compilation of finishes from bodybuilders which prove that sometimes body mass plays the ultimate role. Please don't forget about the likes, comments with 4 words, and subscribe to the channel. Here we go. Number 15. James Thompson vs Mark Goddard. Let's start today's video with a rather interesting fight. In 2003, the local promotion Ultimate Combat was putting on fights with guys who were unequal in terms of size, to put it mildly. We're interested in a match between the giant James Thompson, who had some shine after his fight with Alexander Emelianenko in Pride and other fighters, and a current referee in the world's best league, Mark Goddard. In fact, these two have already faced each other in June, and back then the fight happened to be more competitive to many people's surprise. The Colossus managed to score the TKO victory only closer to the end of the second round. This time round, Timon and Pumbaa had their rematch on November the 30th and finally settled their business down. It was all over in just 18 seconds from the start in favor of the huge Brit. After such fights, Mark decided to become a referee. It's safer. But for now, Kobe Covington approves that kind of stuff, and we move on. Number 14. Dave Bautista vs Vince Lucero. Next, we will overview the bout that took place in 2012 that featured a former pro wrestler who tried his luck in mixed martial arts. After leaving the WWE another time and turning into Drax the Destroyer, Bautista went to MMA to replicate the success of Brock Lesnar. However, his fight with Rashad Evans was cancelled due to the latter going into prison prior to the set date. He was replaced with a journeyman veteran who had more than 40 fights on his resume. The main event of the evening lived up to all expectations. Actually, it couldn't go any other way, because looking at these guys and knowing that Dave was throwing around big wrestlers in the ring for his entire career, it was clear that if he wanted to, he could put Vince in his back pocket and leave the arena. But it was against the rules of martial arts, so Bautista had to take a classic approach. At first, he messed around with his opponent at the fence, and closer to the end of the round, drained him, took a dominant position, and finished him by a TKO until the referee stopped the fight. This is more or less how his audition for the Guardians of the Galaxy went down. Number 13. Bobby Lashley vs Bob Sapp. Now, we would like to show you a fight that many people experienced without even knowing. In June of 2009, the regional promotion FFI put on a match between Godzilla and King Kong, meaning between Bobby Lashley and Bob Sapp. While you already know about the latter from many different videos featuring the Beast, the situation with Bobby was trickier. Surprisingly, even with his abnormal physicality and a hyper-successful career in MMA and wrestling, the guy did not become a worldwide star, though he had all the potential in his huge hands. Either way, at the time when Lashley, who looked like an elite bodybuilder, tried himself in mixed martial arts, he crossed paths with Bob Sapp, who made an impression like he invented bodybuilding in the first place. And now, we'll say a couple of words regarding the part that many people experienced that fight without even realizing it. There wasn't anything remarkable in the fight itself. Bobby took the Beast down and TKO'd him after around 3 minutes. But those who lived near Mississippi, where the fight took place, couldn't help but notice a cracking plaster on the walls of their houses and a 7.0 magnitude earthquake. Number 12. Czech Congo vs Yup Castile. The next honorable place goes to the massacre in the heavyweight division that took place in April of 2004. It was the time when the fighting world witnessed the French knockout artist in all of his beauty. At Ring's tournament, Czech Congo shared the ring with the fighter from the Netherlands. Congo is a Frenchman from the UFC who was knocking people out before it turned mainstream for almost his entire career, which also was the case in this particular fight. Congo completely dismantled Youp in the stand-up and finished him closer to the end of the round with a bombardment in brutal fashion. Number 11. Mirko Cro Cop vs Laurent Javier Horay. Now, if you will, we would like to put the mixed style aside and look at the sport called kickboxing. In May of 2012, an honored veteran and a man who at his peak resembled the Terminator had another title run in K1. One of the obstacles in his way happened to be an experienced Spanish fighter with a long name. The physical condition and terrifying shape of a former Croatian policeman never ceased to amaze. Both at the beginning and in the end of his journey, Mirko still inspired fear in every athlete who was in his way, and Laurent Javier wasn't an exception to this rule. Even having a lot of experience in kickboxing, he couldn't offer anything to the veteran, and numerous knockdowns in the span of 2 rounds is a testament to that. In fact, everything came to an end during one of the sequences when Cro Cop pressed Horay to the corner and got him out of there with a quick combination. Number 10. Robert Bernica vs Marcin Neyman. The next heavyweight scrap, in which one of the fighters looks like a blown-up lightweight compared to the other, took place in April of 2012. At that moment, the real Lithuanian bodybuilder called Bernica, who can be spotted from the moon without a telescope, had a fight under MMA rules against a Polish athlete. Hercules, Ilya Muromets, Apollo, Dwayne Rock Johnson, legendary Pape, all of these guys did not spare their DNA to create Robert Bernica through a genetic experiment. All in all, let's get straight to the second round, as obviously nothing really happened in the first one. But it did in the next. After grabbing Neyman with his bare grip, the Lithuanian giant unloaded all of his power and made him tap within seconds after a devastating ground and pound. Number 9. Jeff Monson vs Pat Stano. In October of 2004, a rising American, Jeff Monson, who eventually spent decades on developing the combat sports and successful career, was having his 17th professional fight. At Euphoria Road to the Titles tournament, he shared the ring with his countrymen. Let's not beat around the bush and just say that Snowman looked like a rock in human form for the most part of his life, as strangely as that may sound. In the beginning of his journey, Jeff was always going back to his roots and actively used wrestling skills. This wasn't an exception, but that was the case in the first round. When fighters got to the second one, Monson resorted to clinching, from where he continually thrusted his knees of steel to the body of his opponent. As it turned out later, such a tactic found its success, as even the least significant shot that keeps on landing to the same spot will eventually break the defense and fulfill its purpose. And that's exactly what happened in the middle of the round, when Pat's body couldn't take it anymore and he collapsed on the mat, not being able to offer resistance.
That's it. He got caught in the ribs.
Number 8. Yoel Romero vs Luke Rockhold. When we talk about physical specimens and real monsters, we can't help but mention a Cuban military experiment from the lab that turns humans into machines. In February of 2018, Kraken had an opportunity to become the UFC interim middleweight champion. Skywalker Rockhold was the one to help him with that, who accepted his fate of being a heavy bag with no hesitation. With all due respect to the athlete, and best believe, Romero would have become the interim champion if it wasn't for his issues with weight cutting. And the fight itself ended quite expectedly. Third round, and an outstanding knockout after Yoel rammed Luke's head into the fence. That's one of those rare cases when it's not the cold that gives you goosebumps. Number 7. Melvin Manhoff vs Kazuo Misaki. Merciless Melvin Manhoff almost never was inferior to his opponents in terms of size despite not being the tallest guy. For the majority of the time, the Surinamese Dutch athlete was performing in the middleweight and light heavyweight divisions, where he easily dispatched everybody in his way if he was not losing. 29 knockouts out of 32 victories don't appear out of nowhere, and his win over the Japanese is a clear testament to that. An impressive muscle frame with legs, and Manov can be easily called that, as it's just a fact, smashed Kazuo Misaki in less than 2 minutes from the start. In one of the sequences, Melvin suddenly switched his gear to an instant kill mode and rushed forward like a madman. Just a few shots from the combination were enough for the Japanese to experience the eclipse inside of his skull. Number 6. Paulo Costa vs Adriano Balbi. We won't forget to mention another vicious and dangerous middleweight of the world's best league who has some issues moving between rooms as the doorways happen to be too narrow for him. In September of 2016, Borrachina was looking to defend his local championship in his last fight before his UFC debut. At Jungle Fight 90, Paulo Costa, who was on a streak of 7 stoppage victories, showed with his appearance what's going to happen if you finish your porridge just as your parents told you in childhood. And the performance itself ended with a jacked guy, as people usually see him in the octagon, dispatching another of his unlucky victims. By the way, it's the only fight in the Brazilian's career that did not result in a TKO, but a clean knockout in the first round. Number 5. Ivan Sterkov vs Artur Asterhoff. In November of 2021, the Russian League ACA put on its 131st event. One of the fights on the card was between the Ural Hulk and his opponent that you don't really need to remember. An impressive build of the Russian Bruce Banner did not promise anything good for Artur Asterhoff, who compared to his opponent looked like he was a repeater for his entire time in school. After dropping Asterhoff with one of his bombs, the Ural Hulk went for the finish and hammered his chin until he went limp.
That's going to be it. That's it.
That is it. Ivan Sterkov with the...
Number 4. Bob Sapp vs Kimo Leopoldo. As you already know what kind of compilation we have today, we decided to make an exception for the beast and show him in a different light, which is not characteristic for him. In other words, stick to the screens as we're about to show the fight of Bob Sapp where he won. We understand your confusion and surprise, but don't waste your energy on that. Instead, take a look at the action in the ring. Frankly speaking, all this mess could serve as an example of how one shouldn't fight. Or more so, if you ever ask yourself a question of how the guys who fight for oxygen look like, this clash would be perfect video material. But jokes aside, we really suggest you make a wish. When else are you going to see Bob Sapp with the face of a warrior and a raised hand instead of him lying in the corner? Anyway, by some miraculous intervention, the Beast managed to weather the storm, break Kim Leopoldo with his onslaught, and earn a stoppage victory. Number 3. Alistair Overeem vs Javad Potorak. We're back in kickboxing. We open our top 3 with none other than the main lover of a specific kind of meat, who from 2010 could easily play centaurs from Greek mythology without any makeup. On April the 3rd, he went up against a fighter from Bosnia and Herzegovina, taking part in the K1 Grand Prix finale. Let's not waste too much time here and just say that we had an opportunity to witness a combination of science and nature in pure harmony, and a little bit of horse meat, of course. Overall, the fight didn't last even 3 minutes, as a ripped and jacked monster in the face of Alistair completely destroyed Javad with a deadly knee. Number 2. Alan Galani vs Mahmoud Hassan. In September of 2013, the world of mixed martial arts got introduced to the Cameroonian Panther, who in the past was a 4-time Thai boxing world champion and overall made an impression of a cyborg covered with skin rather than just a genetically gifted fighter. Some say that Hassan doesn't know where he is even till this day after such a performance from his vis-a-vis, and we can definitely believe in that. The fight itself lasted less than 31 seconds, as it seemed like Galani was also in a hurry to compete in the Arnold Classic right after the event. If Yoel Romero didn't exist, Alan Panther Galani would honorably take the Soldier of God nickname.
45 pounds of pure muscle.
Number 1. Mariusz Puszkanowski versus Surajin Usmane-Dia. And of course, at the number 1 spot we have a Polish powerlifter and a 5-time world strongest man champion who has been competing in MMA since 2009. Today, we will overview one of his most recent fights that happened in October of 2021. At KSW 64, Puszkanowski went up against a fighter from Senegal named Bombardier. Those who watched this fight live wouldn't lie that the fighter's announcement, not accounting for their walkout, lasted longer than the action inside the octagon. Even a mature but still very dangerous Mariusz Puszkanowski managed to deliver another performance worthy of an Oscar, finishing his opponent in just 18 seconds. He masterfully countered Usmane-Dia and folded him at the fence. No comments.
Usmane-Dia do takich kopnięć przyzwyczajony nie jest.
Which of the aforementioned knockouts did you like the most? Leave your opinion in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the new videos, and of course, hit the like button if you enjoyed this one. See you soon.